What I was seeing in South America with USAID, that's more of the tail of the snake. What I was seeing of USAID in Cairo is much closer to the head. And USAID isn't a single monolithic entity. It is an entity that's receiving $50 billion that are going to a lot of different things that are serving a lot of different agendas. And part of it, the federal government, and by that I mean even Joe Biden's government, they've lost control of. I don't think they have control of USAID Cairo. Not Trump now. He hopes to get control of it, and not the Biden administration before. And this is maybe the real smoking gun right here. What I'm about to reveal to you is the thing they don't want revealed. I find myself talking to people who are much higher up the food chain from me, who are asking me, Larry, what do you think is going on at USAID Cairo? And I said, I think they're preparing for war. Welcome to another episode of Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton, and I am fired up today. I'm very fired up. There has been a lot going on in my life in recent months, and today we're going to connect some of those dots. But I want to first start with the Swattings and the terrorists who are doing it. As most of you will know, my home was recently swatted, and the individuals who are doing this is terrorism. They are terrorists. But I want to start with this thought. These are dumb terrorists. These people are stupid. I mean, really stupid. What is your game here? I mean, I want to give you just a little bit of advice to terrorists at the very start of this episode of Ideas Have Consequences. You see, when you terrorize people, they need to know what it is that you no longer want them to do. So, for example, Muslim terrorists who blow things up, they say, want you to stop drawing demeaning pictures of Muhammad, for instance. Charlie Hebdo, the meaning was clear there. They were drawing pictures of Muhammad, and terrorists went in there and shot people and blew things up. The connection was pretty clear, what it was that they didn't want them to do. BLM and Antifa rioters burning cities, they want you to vote for Democrats. Now, exactly why burning cities would make you want to vote for Democrats, I don't know. But the connection there was clear. That's what they wanted. That's who they are. That's what they're about. And the lefty terrorists who are burning Teslas and denting them and bashing them and all sorts of things, they want Elon Musk and his Doge team to back off of their exposure of government corruption. Again, the connection is clear. Elon Musk, Tesla, and his current activities. But in these swattings, come on, what's your game? What is it? What message am others like me who have been swatted, about 15 of us now, what is it that you don't want us to keep doing? You see, because you're dumb terrorists, we don't actually know what it is that you want. I mean, is it that you just want to send pizzas to our house because you think we like pizza? And to be clear, I do like pizza. I like pizza a lot. But if you do send me a pizza, please pay for it in advance because I won't accept it otherwise. So what's your game? What angle are you working here? What is it that you don't want me to do anymore? Is it my commentary on Ukraine, a country that I've described quite rightly, quite accurately, as a hellhole? It's not to say there aren't some good people in Ukraine. There are. But I don't want to see billions of U.S. dollars. Just to be clear, if it's Ukraine you don't want me to talk about anymore, I'm just going to talk a little bit about it right here. I do not want any more money going to from the United States, from American tax dollars, to fund what is chiefly a bad war. Not that there are really any good wars, but there are just wars. But this is a war that doesn't make any sense. Ukraine has nothing to gain from this moving forward except the loss of your whole damn country. Is that what you want? And I don't want to see billions of dollars going to a country that, I've been there again 7 to 10 times maybe. I've written a book, a history of child trafficking and corruption in that country, long before most people could find Ukraine on a map. Zelensky himself has said that $100 billion didn't even reach them. And I would guess that the other $250 billion, a figure of $350 billion that Donald Trump used in his White House meeting with Zelensky, who knows what that stuff went to? So no, I don't want that. To be clear, I'm going to keep saying that. I don't want to see American boys go and die by the millions, and that's what it would be, in a war with another nuclear power that believes it's fighting for its very existence. Wouldn't be like Afghanistan, people. Wouldn't be like Vietnam. Wouldn't be like Korea. And it probably wouldn't even be like World War II. I fear that it would be much worse because our capacity to kill one another has advanced tremendously. And if you think it would remain an isolated regional war, it would not. It's a powder keg. So no, I don't want to see that happen. So if Ukraine you don't want me to talk about anymore, well, didn't work. But again, I'm left clueless as to what it is that I did to piss you off. So the result is that you now just pissed me off. Maybe you don't like my commentary on USAID. And that's where I think we're really, really over the target. That's where I think you people are coming from. That's what I think that this is chiefly about, because a lot of us who have been swatted, we have this in common. And USAID is incredibly corrupt. We know this. Elon Musk and Doge. If you think about it, what is it that Elon Musk has chiefly been going after? USAID. What have I been going after for the last, really I've been going after it for a few years now. But what have I been really going after for the last couple of months? USAID, the United States Agency for International Development. It's supposed to be like UNICEF. It's supposed to be like the governmental equivalent of Samaritan's Purse. USAID is supposed to be like, say, the Peace Corps. They just bring good tidings everywhere they go. But of course, we know they aren't. As Elon Musk and his Doge team have revealed, they were funding everything from paid agents within the walls of the Christian church, like Russell Moore, who's a guy I would love. Russell Moore, if you're watching, if you're listening, I would love to bring you on my show and we can talk. The two of us can talk about your theology versus what I think is actual biblical theology. I would be delighted to talk with you in a fair and open discussion. Don't even have to do it on my show. We can do it in some kind of public venue like a civic center or something, in the way that I might have debated, say Christopher Hitchens or Michael Shermer or Daniel Dennett or others. Be happy to. Just as I recently agreed to debate Darryl Cooper, who unsurprisingly declined. I'd be more than happy to discuss your ideas on this show. But again, you're a paid agent of USAID. Russell Moore and people like him at Christianity Today, they were being funded secretly, essentially, with your tax dollars to push a radical domestic agenda, and a foreign one. USAID, Elon Musk was pointing out, was also funding terrorism. And things like, naked transgender twister in Somalia. But I went on Steve Bannon's show and I pointed out that they're not just doing that. They're running a massive human trafficking op in South America. And then I went to Cairo and we know what happened there, but I'll come back to that in just a moment. But again, speaking to terrorists, is that what I was talking about that you don't want me to talk about? USAID? Would you prefer I be silent on USAID? The message isn't clear. Or maybe it's Hamas. which is related to USAID. The fact that I'm supportive of Israel. Actually, I haven't talked a whole lot about Israel, but I have talked a lot about Islamic terrorism. And that's what Hamas is. I have talked about that. Is that the message I'm supposed to be getting? If you're going to deliver me a pizza, maybe you could put a message in the box that says, this is what we don't want you to talk about anymore, so that I'll know. I mean, swattings that fall short of murdering me, and this one did, leave me kind of scratching my head and wondering, what is it that you people stand for? What are you about? I also want to add that in addition to the fact that the message here is unclear, you people are cowards. You're cowards. You know, I miss the good old days when I was doing a lot of work on Islam and I was debating in forums like CNN International and Al Jazeera and at Hyde Park. I was debating Muslims, some of them radical Muslims. And I kind of miss those days when they would just straight up threaten to kill you. I just found that kind of refreshingly honest and straightforward. But you people, the ones who had my home swatted, where men arrive at my home with AR-15s, pointing them into the interior of my home. You people, you hide behind your digital wall. You use local law enforcement as proxy assassination squads. And that's because you're So in this episode of Ideas Have Consequences, I'm going to try to make clear to my audience that which is muddled in the heads of terrorists like you. If you had been students of mine writing an essay, I would come away saying, look, you get an F here because I don't even know what you're talking about. What's the central thesis here? What is this essay about? And same goes for terrorism. To be an effective terrorist, I won't say a good terrorist because there are no good terrorists, there are no moral terrorists, but to be an effective terrorist, you need to make the connection clear. Tesla's Musk. That one's clear. With you people, again, haven't any idea. Well, I say I don't have any idea. I'm pretty sure it's USAID. But again, I'm going to try to make this clear in the minds of my listeners, of the posse, so that they perhaps can track along and understand what is happening here. So let's retrace my steps of the last 2 months, just the last 2 months. First, I was in South America, and I was only in South America briefly to get a look at what was happening with immigration post-election. That is to say, post-presidential election, because I knew what was happening prior to that with Biden, that the floodgates were open, and USAID, again, the nefarious organization that is a front for any number of evil agendas, and we'll come to that. But I wanted to see what it looked like now that Trump had been elected. Would there be would it increase until Trump actually took office on inauguration day? Would people going, oh my, we only have 2 months, to get to the border, or whatever? Or would they go, no point, turn back? So I went down there to get a look at that one more time. And then I went from there to Switzerland, to Davos, to the World Economic Forum. And I've covered that, the last 3 years. If you're new to Ideas Have Consequences, you're new to this show, please think about joining the posse, and they'll put that at the bottom of the screen where you can do so. But as I've been communicating to the people who follow this show, or faithful, listeners, viewers of this show, the World Economic Forum is something I've had my eye on for quite some time. And again, it's because it is the modern residence of atheism. And not because, Richard Dawkins is, some kind of big presence at the World Economic Forum, or they're preaching atheism per se. It's just because they just kind of assume there is no God, that they live in a godless world, and that they are the individuals who can do more or less whatever they want. They see themselves as, kind of Plato's allegory of the cave, the philosopher kings who kind of sit at the top, self-appointed, who then dictate to the rest of us. And then I go downstream from that to see how their policies, their ideas are impacting the lives of real people. So there I was at the World Economic Forum, and then I flew from there to Cairo. And what I wanted to do in Cairo, what I was mainly there to do, would probably make the Egyptian government much more nervous than what I actually did do that got their attention and got them quite upset at me. I was there to meet with persecuted Christians. I was doing it more or less quietly, and that is because I couldn't get into their country at Nigeria. They couldn't get into mine. They couldn't, visas run out, couldn't come to the United States, couldn't get into Europe. I said, fine, we'll meet in an African country. We'll meet in Cairo. So I was there for that reason. And then also because I want to eventually, when when I'm able to come up for air, it's just been nonstop drama in my life. When I'm able to come up for air, I want to tell you about these amazing people. I have a lot of video, a lot to tell you about them. Coptic Christians known as the Zabbaleen, who live quite literally on the fringes of Egyptian society, on the fringes of Cairo. Zabbaleen is Egyptian Arabic, and it means the garbage people. These are Coptic Christians who don't participate in in mainstream society. They're kind of the untouchables, and they live in what are called garbage cities, and that is because they're only allowed to collect garbage and recycle it. So I'm going to tell you their story, but that was really the reason that I was there. And then I went, as most of you will know, I decided since I'm here, I'm going to go and check on the office at USAID. Just as well. I've been following them in South America. I'll see Central America, see what they're doing here in Africa, hear what they're doing in the Middle East. Egypt is an African country geographically, but culturally, it's Middle Eastern. It's not an Islamic state. It is Muslim majority. There's some difference there. And it would be deemed to be, more a liberal. They would not like that word, but than an Islamic state. Secular. It isn't really secular, but feels more like that, let's say. So that's why I was there, and I thought, while I'm here, I just as well go take a look at the USAID office. And the USAID office is, as we have demonstrated on this show and also on my social media, it is a fortress. And there have been dumb people who have come into the comments and said things like, what do you think was going to happen? You're going to a fortified, American government office. I know exactly what to expect. If I go to what should be the most heavily defended building in Egypt, the U.S. Embassy, and I were to walk in, they would want to scan, if I had a backpack or something, it's like the airport entering into these buildings, and for good reason, because there are terrorist attacks. And they would scan it. They would ask for my ID, and then they'd say, what can we do for you? And if I were to ask at the U.S. Embassy, what do you guys do here? They would say, we represent U.S. interests here in Egypt. We help Americans who might be in trouble here. Perhaps they've lost a passport or gotten in trouble with local law enforcement. We review visa applications for Egyptians trying to come to the United States, that kind of thing. That's what they would tell you. At USAID, they did not do this. They went sideways. And the result of this was that when I was driving by the building, I wasn't even inside USAID. When I was driving by the building, the USAID rent-a-cops, they're Egyptian, they're paid for with my tax dollars and your tax dollars, came out from beyond the barrier and stopped the vehicle. And this is what happened. All right, I'm being detained by USAID Cairo. I'm outside of the gate. They've taken my driver's license, not mine, his. They've demanded my passport. They have demanded, gotta put this down. They have demanded my phone. Again, we've not entered into the facility. We've taken no pictures of the facility on this particular occasion, but they did know that who I was, that I was the guy who was here last week, and I decided to come back to just take one more look. Had no intention of entering, and we didn't. But this time, they were laying in wait for us. They've blocked the car, and now they've suggested that I'm some sort of terrorist. And they know better than that. They know that I have no such intentions. I'm quite Googleable. And they were very aware of my my viral tweet from last time. But again, that's what's going on here. So, you know, if I go dark, you'll know what happened. What's he saying?
Stay here.
Hopefully I'm holding this up properly here. And they're, go ahead, you're fine. They're stopping my driver. They're telling me they want my phone because I have videoed the USAID facility and so forth. I've told them they can't have the phone. So now they're telling my driver he has to get out. So I'm continuing the video, and I can't see if I'm aiming this correctly, so hopefully I am. So now, again, we're connecting the dots here. So this is what happened at USAID Cairo. It became a 3-hour standoff where they, 2.5, 3-hour standoff where they called the Egyptian secret police. The Egyptian secret police specialize in disappearing people, in killing people, in torturing people. You don't just call them for some minor thing. And again, there are dumb people who come on my social media or, in the comments here and say, this is just drama. You're making too much out of this. Absolutely not. The insistence, and this is the key part, the insistence of trying to get me out of the vehicle, turn over my phone, turn over my passport, and to enter in unaccompanied. That is, they wouldn't have let my translator go with me, that I had to go inside the USAID compound and enter into some building to do something that they could bring to the car. They said they just had a document they wanted me to sign, an incident report. I said, fine, you can bring it here. Then they told me it's in Arabic, and they wouldn't allow my translator to go with me or translator. That is a clear indication of their desire to Jamal Khashoggi me. And I managed to leave the country before the secret police came to my hotel and began searching through everything and suggesting that I was a spy. And, well, I was. I was there to spy on my government, not their government. I was there to see what was going on with USAID. Now, this is important because I've not said this. I keep telling you, for some time, I've wanted to say more about USAID. And it's because I've been really working this through in my mind. And unfortunately, I have been traveling, changing countries, time zones, so much. Steve Gruber, I apologize. I was supposed to appear on his show, and I got the time zone wrong, and I missed it by an hour. I counted the hours in the wrong direction. I was just so tired. It was right after the swatting. He was not happy with me. Steve, I'm so sorry. I will appear on your show again. Love to. Love you. But sometimes you have so much going on that you need what I call productive loafing to process it. And productive loafing is when you kind of step away from everything you're doing and you go for a walk, you go for a bicycle ride, or you watch a movie, or something, you read about just something not related to your work. And, maybe it's just walking around the office, bouncing a tennis ball off the wall, but it's where you're thinking things through. And I haven't had the opportunity to do that while I was traveling. And I've barely had any opportunity to do it since I've been back. But something about what happened at USAID did not sit right with me. I mean, none of it sat right with me because, as I said, it was an attempt to kill me. But I left the country and I told Lori, upon landing in Prague, I went from Egypt to Prague, and finally arriving in Prague, I'm kind of, okay, made it out of there. Can't ever go back. sadly, because I like Egypt. That is to say, I'm fascinated with its history, and I know a number of Christians there that I would seek to encourage there. But anyway, I get to Prague, and I feel something in my subconscious mind. My intuition is trying to work its way to the surface. You know, your intuition isn't just, feelings, just emotion. Intuition is the sum of your thought processes. It's your feelings, it's your intellect, it's memories, it's education, it's all those things into one thing. And your intuition can be wrong, sometimes spectacularly wrong. But sometimes your intuition, it's trying to bring something forward to tell you something. I call them the hamsters. I refer to them as my hamsters. My hamsters are running on the wheel, and they're working something out while I'm working on something else. I'm writing an article or a book, or I'm doing an interview, and I've given some problem to the hamsters who run on the wheel day and night, and they eventually spit forward for me because they're generating electricity. They spit forward for me in answer to the problem that I'm trying to solve. It's intuition that's at work. And finally getting to Prague and having the opportunity to do a little bit of productive loafing. Lori goes to bed, and because I'm a night owl, I said, I'm going to go for a walk. And I really needed some of that cold, fresh, Czech air. And I'm walking on the beautiful Charles Bridge, which is a scene in the first Mission Impossible movie. It was filmed, part of it, with John Voight, a very good conservative, by the way, filmed part of it on that movie. On that bridge, very famous, beautiful bridge. And it's at night, and Chad Prather calls me. Some of you who follow me will know who Chad is. Chad's a cowboy conservative commentator, but he's more than that. He's a very good friend. And Chad calls me and says, "Is CIA trying to bump you off? I mean, what is going on? What just happened in Cairo?" And I'm relating to him the story, and I can feel this thing trying to work its way to my mind. And I finally go, got it. I have figured out what has been bothering me in all of this. The people who held me at USAID, first, the security guards, again, paid for with my tax dollars and yours, who have no jurisdiction in the city of Cairo beyond the compound, which is where they were. Cairo police, who were also summoned, and Egyptian state security, the NSA, National Security Agency, not to be confused with ours, and who are sometimes, ironically, called Homeland Security. They are Egypt's, again, KGB. They're the secret police. They were all on the scene, and they're all taking their orders from someone in USAID. And we all tend to think of USAID as Samantha Power, sitting at the top, who was involved in the unmasking of General Flynn and also involved in the spying on the Trump campaign. So we know these things about Samantha Power. Why in the world would she go from work in the intelligence agencies to the head of what is supposed to be a benevolence agency? Well, because, as one of my sons so eloquently put it, because the open secret is that USAID is a front for intelligence operations. And you see, I was starting to put pieces together, that we tend to think of someone like her at the top and USAID, this $50 billion a year agency that is a leviathan. It's tentacles in everything. And we keep hearing Democrats say silly things like USAID is an independent agency. They keep insisting of its independence, meaning no oversight. You're not allowed to look over there. Whoops, stay out of there. Elon, stay out of there. You go over here and and lop off a few nickels and dimes, but you better not touch USAID. And of course, what did he do? He went straight after USAID. I was going straight after USAID, sending, information as high up the ladder as I could get it, which turned out to be to the President of the United States himself. And I kept thinking, there was something odd about that whole standoff while they're taking their orders from inside. And the guy, whose name escapes me at the moment, but I'll bring him back up on the show, who was just in September named the head of USAID Cairo, I would like to think he's more intelligent than this. You see, my discovery on the Charles Bridge, that intuition, that thing the hamsters finally spit out and said, Larry, this is it. This is what is bothering you about what happened in Cairo. You were kind of thinking that they're on the phone with someone inside who's in charge, an American. And it isn't. It's Arabs who are calling those shots. They're the ones who are calling the shots. Any intelligent American who understands our culture, when I came calling at USAID Cairo, and the Egyptian security guards call inside to a supervisor and say, hey, we have an American writer out here who's asking questions about USAID, about our activities here, asking whether or not we are complying. Now, remember, the President of the United States had issued, just before I went there, which is what really made me want to go there, the President of the United States had signed an executive order stating that USAID should begin, a process of winding down, of closing shop. So you would think that an Egyptian security guard would say, which is what I'd said to him, that I wanted to know, A, are they complying with the executive order of the President of the United States? And what do you guys do here? There's a guy down here who's asking these questions, an American. If it's an American on the other end of that phone and he has any intelligence at all, and I'm going to say that he does, looking at the resume of this fella, I'm going to assume that he does. I just don't think the supervisor acts on his own to do the kind of things they were trying to do for me. Not some low-level flunky did that. This was kicked upstairs because this was escalating rapidly. And my life was on the line. If it goes to an American, he would say, look, don't detain the car. Don't stop the car. You guys are going to Streisand affect this whole thing. Tell him that, unfortunately, we're very busy. He did not make an appointment. We have no time to give an interview. And lie. Tell him, yes, we are in the process of winding down, and just say, so sorry, and let him go. There's no story. I don't get, whatever it is, 12 million views on the thread that I posted online. The podcasts that I post here don't get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views. Because, at least not related to USAID, because there'd be no USAID story that's quite as riveting, swashbuckling as that became. That's what an American would do, who's smart. Nancy Pelosi, with all her corruption, would never be so dumb as to say that. To say, yeah, find him somewhere and try to get him inside the building and then we'll take care of him. She wouldn't do that. She'd be smarter than that. She'd say, no, just say there's nothing going on here. That's it. He's got nothing to write about. And that would be true. But that's not the way Arabs work. And that was the part, having been around the Islamic world, around Africa, this is the way they operate. And that was the thing the hamsters were picking up on. It was going, danger, Will Robinson, danger, blah, blah, blah. Can't get that out. Danger, Will Robinson. My intuition was telling me, Larry, these are Arabs who are running the show inside USAID. Arabs who are running the show in there. You see, we like to speak. This is my second discovery on Charles Bridge that night. when I'm chatting with Chad. We often say, and sometimes just for convenience sake, it's too difficult, to list every party represented and, every ideology represented in a given thing. So we often say things like, they tried to kill Trump. They want war. They want open borders. They want to do this to children. When the fact of the matter is, they is often not they, but they, meaning a host of parties with their own agendas. And sometimes they meet up in some kind of strange Twilight Zone Venn diagram, such as with what's going on in the Middle East. Hamas, those guys aren't Democrats. They aren't woke at all. But they have found that there is a Venn diagram that meets somewhere out in the Twilight Zone where they match up with Democrat motives, with Democrat goals. And so frequently when we say they, it's actually loads of theys. And so it is my discovery with USAID. We keep thinking of it as this Leviathan, which it is, that is with at the head of it is, someone like a Samantha Power who is calling all the shots, and that she knows what's going on at USAID Cairo, and she knows what's going on with USAID and in Colombia, and she knows what's going on with USAID in other parts of Africa, when she doesn't. She's corrupt. She's made that clear by her activities. But my sense is that USAID and that what's happening in Cairo, and again, think of it like this. What I'm seeing, what I saw in South America and Central America with USAID, the people in Cairo don't know about and don't care. That's not their agenda. They're not at all interested in Cairo, USAID headquarters, with trafficking people to the U.S. border and beyond it in order to flip red states into blue ones. They don't have any interest in that. Those are two entirely separate agendas. But I picked up on the fact that what I was seeing in South America with USAID, that's more of the tail of the snake. What I was seeing of USAID in Cairo is much closer to the head. And now here's the big revelation for you. And I'm trying to help the terrorists, by the way, who are listening, because again, I don't think they've made the connection clear. So I'm making it for you. Why would someone swat my house? I was exposing not only a lot of corruption with USAID, but in Cairo, I had effectively blundered upon. I knew that USAID Cairo was dangerous, that they were corrupt. But I thought they were smarter. I gave them too much credit. You see, some of what I do, as I've said to you before, some of what I do I know is dangerous. Going into some of the places I've been into in Africa and South America, Middle East, I know are dangerous, and I expect them to be dangerous. USAID Cairo, I did not expect to be dangerous. It's like, you're on patrol in the military, and you end up in a firefight in a place that you think there's no enemy here. I figured USAID Cairo, they would be smart, and they would show me nothing, and they would just say, unfortunately, we're closed, and we're winding down. Sorry. But that isn't what they do. What I saw with USAID Cairo, and again, this is what the hamsters, when I'm finally able to do a bit of productive loafing, and I'm walking around Charles Bridge, And this is maybe the real smoking gun right here. What I'm about to reveal to you is the thing they don't want revealed. Not only did I realize those are Arabs in there who are calling the shots, not Americans. And USAID isn't a single monolithic entity. It is an entity that's receiving $50 billion that are going to a lot of different things that are serving a lot of different agendas. And part of it, the federal government, and by that I mean even Joe Biden's government, they've lost control of. I don't think they have control of USAID Cairo. Not Trump now. He hopes to get control of it. And not the Biden administration before. So I come out of that and I find myself talking to people who are much higher up the food chain from me, who are asking me, Larry, what do you think is going on at USAID Cairo? And I said, I think they're preparing for war with Israel. What? I said, look, think about it. When I went there, what I saw from them was fear. They were angry that I had breached their security before. Again, not with grappling hooks or climbing through ventilation shafts. They opened the gate for me. They opened the door for me. It's on them, not me. But they were afraid of what I knew. And if what was on the other side of those walls at USAID were just pallets of grain and canned goods, rice, toys and playground equipment, agricultural tools, books to teach people the English language or Arabic or something. If that's what there was on the other side of those walls, then they wouldn't have panicked so much. But there's a lot more going on the other side of those walls, and they behaved like an intelligence organization. And I'm just telling you, my gut instinct, and by the way, just as I said before, intuition can be wrong, and I could be wrong here, but there's been an awful lot since I was there to confirm my suspicions. I think Egypt is gearing up for war, and I think the USAID office is a forward outpost that is assisting Hamas secretly. That's what they're doing. And that's what they were afraid I might know. And I have to admit to you, at the moment that I was there, I didn't know it. It's that I had to get away, get some space from it, get my breath, have time to think, have some productive loafing. And then the hamsters started spitting forward information. And I began to put my finger on it. It's something I might call a ponytail moment. If you've ever seen or read Patriot Games, there's a wonderful scene, and it's both in the book and it's also in the movie, but where Harrison Ford is trying to figure out something about these terrorists that they're looking for. And as they're all in discussion, he decides he needs a break, and he goes for a bit of a walk, and he's washing his hands in the bathroom, and he sees a woman going down the hall, and she turns and she flicks her ponytail, red hair, ponytail. And that helps work this thought that's in the back of Jack Ryan, played by Harrison Ford, Jack Ryan's mind, to the surface. And he goes back into the room where everyone else is, and he says, I got it. This terrorist group has a woman in it, and she has red hair. I now remember I saw a woman at the scene of the crime with her hair in a red ponytail. It's a ponytail moment. My ponytail moment were the things that I'm sharing with you, but it was also the feeling that Egypt was preparing for war. The sentiment in the country was war when I was there. That's not unusual. It's an Arab country. They hate Israel. They're anti-Semite straight through. And it's pro-Palestinian, but only sort of. They hate the Palestinians, and they don't want a single one of them. And you got to bear in mind that Trump's plan is to depopulate Gaza and force all the Arab countries to take them. And they don't want a single one of them. They want them to stay right where they are. But the feeling was pro-war, that they want war with Israel. And people will often say that makes no sense. And the higher-ups to whom I'm speaking at the time said, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, Egypt is kind of sort of one of our partners in the Middle East, and they rely too much on our money. To that, I can only point you to this. In 1911, a book was published called The Great Illusion, or Grand Illusion in some translations. It's written by a man named Norman Angell, Angell. And the thesis of the book was that, there was already in 1911, there was a lot of talk of a general European conflict that was coming, what would become the First World War. And Angell's argument, very compelling, by the way, was that it was impossible. He says, not going to happen. It makes no sense. Economically, no one has anything to gain and everything to lose. The book was a major bestseller. Everyone, it seemed, loved it, except for the German general staff. They didn't love it, and they were preparing for war, had been for 2 decades. The point that I'm making, and by the way, a general European war did come in 1914. The point that I'm making is that often logic doesn't play a role in these kinds of decisions. I'm right now reading a biography of Vladimir Putin, and the author, she says that she was in Kyiv and in Moscow the week before Putin's invasion of Ukraine in 2014. And she said everybody, academics, media types, and so on, that she talked to in both countries, she said, I was saying to them, there's a feeling that there's going to be war. And she said, they all said to me, nonsense. It's not going to be any war. It makes no sense. Logic doesn't always play a role in these things. Pride usually plays a role. National pride, personal pride, some warped notion of honor plays a role. This is my first time to verbalize my feeling that what was happening at USAID, Cairo, is preparation for war. So then I come home, and as I said in the previous episode, I am telling my lovely wife, Lori, we're out for dinner. She's lamenting that what I do for a living can get awfully dangerous. And I said, don't worry about it. No big deal. I'm home now. Everything is fine. Boringly so. And there's a place for boring, by the way. By boring, I mean peaceful, not necessarily adventurous. And my life can be full of adventure, and not always in a good way. I mean, there's a certain testosterone, testosterone too, but I'm not an adrenaline junkie. It's not that I'm seeking these kinds of things out. It sometimes just happens, just the nature of the work itself. But I'm telling her, look, everything's going to be fine. And we'll go home tonight, and it'll be a nice, peaceful evening and a peaceful weekend. And within, maybe 5 hours later, that's when my home was swatted. And here you see, and it's a little grainy, but I'm awake, and I'm only awake because of my dog Ranger, but it's 1:15 a.m., I think, according to the security camera timestamp. Here you see in grainy video 3 men coming down my driveway. They're wearing body armor and they have AR-15s at the ready. Again, this is grainy video. There were a total of 5 of them. Other 2 were on the periphery of the house. There were 9 cars at the top. So there were more officers on the scene, K-9 unit as well. And it is only because of Ranger, and here's a nice picture of Ranger for those of you. You know, Ranger's become a celebrity. It's funny. I sort of feel like I'm just his agent. I posted a picture of it with 10 million views. You know, Ranger, you have become a rock star. Local media came out and filmed him and, asked me about him and such, which I thought is pretty funny. But why Ranger is a hero here, I thought I might clarify this, is because the only reason I was not asleep is because he was not letting me go to sleep. He was agitated and not fearful. German Shepherds are not as a rule fearful. I mean, if they're properly raised, they're not fearful creatures. You don't have to train them to be guard dogs. They are guard dogs. And again, do not confuse them with chows, with Dobermans, pit bulls. German Shepherds are the best dog on the freaking planet. They're great with children. They have a stable temperament, but they are, just to be clear, they're not lap dogs. This is not a Chihuahua. They're not yappy dogs. They are intense dogs. They tend to be fairly high energy, and they are work dogs. They want a job, and they will naturally patrol. They're naturally vigilant because they see your family and your friends and anybody you accept into the pack. They see you as a pack that it's their job to defend. So they're constantly on patrol. And Ranger, here he is at the foot of my bed, his ears up, moving around like satellite dishes, and I can tell something is going on. And why that matters is because if I'm asleep, as some of the people who have been swatted were, and I'm suddenly awakened by the sound or flashlights or whatever of people outside, and I go out and I see silhouettes, which I eventually did, see silhouettes of men with AR-15s on my porch, I'm not sure that I respond as rationally as I did. And I was armed, and I saw them before they saw me. I would have been going from 0 to 60, just like that. But as it was, Ranger already had me at 30. I was already sort of uneasy because I'm noticing he's uneasy, and I pay attention to the way he behaves. And when I see him, at first I'm thinking it must be a rodent or, he's hearing deer or a dog or something outside. But he's advancing on the door. Something's bothering him there. So I get my weapon. I get my Glock, a pistol, and then I go out. So I go out and I see this. So you see this video right here. This is from my doorbell camera, and there's an infrared quality to it that gives the impression that he's more lit up than he is. But I see that guy, and I see him testing my door. And I'm inside again with a weapon, and if he comes through that door, I probably open fire. And then I'm dead. Maybe my wife's dead. Who knows? Everybody starts firing. But at that point, I'd only seen one guy. But then, thank God, the quite literally, thank the good Lord, the door was locked. And then I see off to the side 2 more guys. And you see this footage right here of guys walking around, shining with their flashlights. And then here, another one, they've now gone around the corner here and they're shining their lights and they're looking around. But they have pointed their AR-15s into the house. And I cannot see that they have uniforms. Now, what do you think is going on in my head, given what has just happened at USAID Cairo? Is this an assassination squad? But I'm also thinking that this is going to play out very badly for me because I'm poorly armed. I might get the drop on 1 or 2 of them, but at the end of the day, it is not like the movies where you see somebody with a pistol, take down people with automatic or semi-automatic rifles. Doesn't work that way. Whoever gets the most lead in the air, the most rapidly wins. And it's not me with a Glock with a very limited number of rounds in it. So this ended up, as I told you in the previous episode, this ends in a good way. Smiles, handshakes. I bear them no ill will. These guys don't make determinations about fake calls. It's not what they do. They respond to a dispatcher who tells them when it's their job to go out and do something. And in this case, they had all been told that there were 3 active shooters in hoodies or with masks or something. I'm getting this third hand, that are going throughout the home shooting everyone. That's what they think. So for them to come down the driveway thinking that, it takes courage on their part to do that. For me to come out and advance towards them with a weapon in what will not be a fair fight. But again, trigger discipline matters, both on my part and on their part. And I'm able to think this through rationally because of Ranger. Because now watching them quietly, silently, I'm able to process what is going on. Why in the world? And I wasn't thinking police, again, because police, they didn't arrive with any sirens, with any lights, and they're tiptoeing around on the deck in darkness. So you're not thinking police. I'm thinking, this is nothing good. But then, of course, this all ends in a good way. I turn on the light and I ask them to identify themselves. They do. And then we begin talking and we realize that this was a swatting incident. That's what happened. The people who are doing this, they're terrorists. And they're cowards. And I'll say it one more time. You're That's what you are. You are attempting to use, you're maybe sitting on a beach somewhere, sipping a little drink with an umbrella in it while you make these fake calls in an attempt to use local law enforcement as proxy assassination squads. That's what they're trying to do. And they don't care who gets killed. I mean, ideally, they want me to get killed, the conservative commentator, whoever it is that's in question. But if their kids get killed or their wife gets killed or the dog or police or sheriff's deputies, members of SWAT teams, they don't care. So much the better. And they're getting off watching it on social media. I had thought about, do I want to put this on social media because I don't want to provide them with the satisfaction of doing it. But then I decided this, and I've said this to the other people who have been swatted. You know what we need to do here? We need to Streisand effect this thing. The Streisand effect, that years ago someone took a photo of her, I guess her Malibu home, and she sued, not wanting it to be published. And instead of, 100,000 people seeing the photo, millions upon millions of people saw the photo because everybody became interested in seeing what it was that Barbara Streisand didn't want anybody to see. And thus was coined the term, the Streisand effect. That's what happened. And in this case, I want to Streisand effect this. I'm telling everyone who has been swatted, tweet and retweet these stories. Tweet and retweet everyone else's stories related to this. Take every opportunity that you get to do an interview. So far, I've done interviews with CNN. I've done interviews with Fox Business. I'll do Fox channel next week. Well, Will Cain show. I'm doing, you name it. I'm just going from interview to interview to interview to tell the story because I want to put it out there. And I want to send this message to the people in question. This was dumb because not only did you not make clear what it is you don't want me to talk about, but I think it's USAID related. That seems to be the theme here, and it certainly has been the thing that I've been hammering on the most lately. But you misread me, and I think you misread these other people. I'm not doing this for clicks. I hope to get some clicks because I hope to be able to make a living. But I was doing what I'm doing now long before I was ever paid to do it. And it's because it's my mission to do it. It's my calling. And if you think that these kinds of things are going to prevent us from talking about it or doing our jobs, you have grossly underestimated us. You have grossly misread who we are and what we're about and what we believe. What you're doing, in fact, is drawing more and more attention to the message that you didn't want anybody to hear. And even if it had not been my plan, and I don't know that I was going to say too much more, I was going to do at least one more podcast on USAID. But even if it had been my plan to say, almost nothing more about USAID or Ukraine or Hamas or the war in Israel, I promise you I'm going to say a lot about them now. You better believe it. And that's because you people are stupid. That's what you are. You're not bright. You're bad terrorists. Ladies and gentlemen, the thing for you to understand, I was at a speaking engagement just a couple of days ago, and I was chatting with a woman beforehand, and she was like, wow, the things going on in your life. She said, I know you advertised you were going to talk about this, but you're probably now going to talk about something a little bit different. And I said, you know what? But I'm going to use it to encourage people. And she quite rightly said to me, somewhat teasing me, how in the world can you turn any of this into anything encouraging? And I had to laugh out loud because I thought, that's actually a fair question. Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Because it means we're over the target. It means that what we're doing is effective. It means the other side is frightened. It means they're scared. It means they are afraid that they are going to lose their funding, going to lose their agenda, that they're going to be arrested, that they're going to be exposed, that they're going to be caught. That's what it means. It means we must be doing something right. And hence, we continue to move in that direction. I can't help but note in Scripture, in the New Testament, that where our Lord was most effective, demonic activity was most present. Always. Satan is not interested, is completely unbothered by you doing things that are more or less irrelevant. They may be nice or quote-unquote good things, but if they don't threaten the gates of hell, he doesn't care. And this is how I would want to remind you, how I'd want to encourage you. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you might be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. That's what we're fighting, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're combating. And the closer we get, the more resistance you get. The term over the target comes from the idea of bombing. And when you knew you were at the place you were supposed to bomb, when the skies were filled with flak from the artillery that was below to protect the site that you were sent to bomb. You're in the wrong place. Nobody's shooting at you. Drop your bombs here. When you're over the target, the turbulence is worse because the air is filled with flak. And that's where we are. That's where we are. So I'm greatly encouraged. I hope you are too. Please pray for us. Please pray for others who are engaged in this work. And I leave you with the words of Joshua chapter 1. Words I love and that I find so inspiring. Be strong and courageous. And it isn't that we're seeking to be strong and courageous in our own might, in my own strength, in my own wisdom, in my own cleverness, but that I rely upon the strength of the Lord, because just as a passage I just read to you says in Ephesians chapter 6, we put on the full armor of God. You put on the armor before you go into battle. You know, those guys came on my porch. They were wearing armor. They put it on before they came to my porch. We put on our armor, our spiritual armor, and we prepare for the fight that is before us. This is what real Christianity looks like, ladies and gentlemen. It has teeth. It's muscular. And it believes, as C.S. Lewis said, that there are things worth fighting for. It is, as he put it, a fighting religion. And we're fighting against principalities. We're fighting against demonic activities. We're fighting against corruption within our own government that is involved doing horrible things to people all over the world, not the least of which involves our own country, the blessed United States of America, a country that I love. Thank you so much for your encouragement and for your support. This has been another episode of Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton.